14, adding a rating is the thing that was giving folks a little bit of trouble. So I'm going to go back to our library code, and I'm going to add the ability to rate a library book. Maybe libraries will start picking that up, so that they can help their customers decide which books to get next. So I'm going to start out with the code that we went through in class, which defines a book class and an aggregate class called library that aggregates books in its books list. So library.books contains book objects. And so what we want to be able to do is include a rating for each book. And hopefully you're seeing the parallels with this and A14. So I'm just going to go through the process of how I would, and I'm not saying this is the only way, but this is how I would modify this code to add a rating and include that rating as something that users can modify. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is I want to decide where the rating should live. And it seems pretty obvious to me that rating is something that's part of the book object or the book class and not the library class. I'm not rating the library in this case. I want to give a different rating to each book. So rating becomes a property of book. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add that in the initialization method. By the way, this is also commonly referred to as a constructor method because it's a method that's invoked when you construct or you build a copy of that class. So you may hear me slip into using that terminology. They're the same thing. Initialization, constructor, depends on the language, honestly, but they're all kind of the same idea. So I'm going to go self.rating equals rating. Okay, and I'm going to actually have the user give a rating when they create a new book. So we're going to have that as an initialization parameter that gets passed to here and gets set as a property for the book class. So if I want this to work properly, I have to come down here where I'm creating a new book. First thing I need to do is I need to add the ability to input a rating here. So I'm going to add another line here, and I'm going to say rating and enter the rating. And then I'm going to add rating as one of the arguments that I give this when I construct a copy of the book class and put it in new book. And then it'll be added to the library there. Now I don't have to do anything different at the library level because the book has the rating. Okay, so there is the rating. And I'm going to come back up here to the book object because what I'd like to do is represent the rating in this string, the string representation of the object. So I'm going to, in parentheses, after the author, include the rating, just like that. And now, don't get confused by the fact that there's parentheses and curly braces. The curly braces are what substitutes self.rating in here in the F string. The parentheses are actually just going to get printed out as parentheses. So that's just how I want it to look when it prints it out. So right now, I can already run this program as it is. So let's run it. And if I want to add a book, we'll give it 3 stars. Okay, so now even when I list books, because this is part of that string, see there are the parentheses that I put in there. I just thought it would be nice to set the rating apart. I could say rating colon or whatever, but this is kind of a little shorthand that I'm just going to use. So already the ratings are here, but that's not quite as far as we want to go because we want to be able to modify the rating. Okay, so where do we go to modify a rating? Well, one thing I need to do is I need to be able to update the rating in a book. So I'm going to create a method of book that allows me to update the rating easily. So I'm going to go def, change rating. That's longer than I want it to be. Let's say new rating. And I'm going to say self and str rating. And this is a pretty simple method. It's called a setter, by the way, in that it allows you to, all it does is set a property to a new value inside the object. But all it's going to do is say self.rating equals str rating. Now, if I really wanted to, like, I don't know, be careful or do some look before you leap kind of error catching here and say, make sure that the rating was in the right format, that it was actually asterisks, that sort of thing, that would probably be smart. But being smart is overrated in this instance because I'm trying to get at a different aspect of this assignment. So I'll let you all be smart, and I'm just going to play it loose here with no looking before I leap at all. So self.rating equals str rating. And then I'm going to give a little feedback that says the rating, we want an F string here, the rating for self.title has been changed to let's do this, self.rating. Okay, so there is my feedback, and I'm referring back to that copy of that object here. And so that's nice and clean. So now I have to figure out how to invoke this method. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add something here. I'm going to add on number 4, I'm going to change it to update rating, and we'll change number 5 to quit. Okay, so we've got a new menu item, and I'm going to change number 5 here to quit. So now all I have to do is create a 4, right? Copy that, little paste, 4. Now I just have to figure out how do I change the book rating. Well, one thing that I need to know is which book do we want to change the rating for? And the other thing I want to know is what do I want to change the rating to? So I have to get 2 pieces of information from the user. So if I'm paying attention to my code, what I see here is that there's another place in my code where I'm asking the user to select a book to do something to, and that's when I remove a book. So I can reuse some of that code in my mind. Right here, choice number 2, I'm choosing a book. I'm getting the book from the library, putting it into an instance or a variable that has a copy of that book or a reference to that book. And then I'm using library.removeBook to remove it here. So I can reuse a whole lot of this code, which I'm going to, because as I've said many times before, programmers are nothing if not lazy. So I'm going to take that whole thing. I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to come straight down here, and I'm going to paste it in there. Okay? So I'm going to say books in the library, and then it's going to say enter the number of the book to update. That'll give me the index of that book. And then we're going to get the rating in a very similar way. Input. Whoa. We're going to say input. Enter the new rating for this book. Okay. And the rating is going to be a string, so I don't have to do any fancy variable sidestepping. The next part of this code on line 73 here, make sure that the book is actually in the library. And then it comes down here and it says it creates a variable called removed book that is equal to that book object from the library.books using the index that we just entered. So I'm going to change that to update book so I know what it is. And here's the line that really has to be different because we're not going to remove that book. So what I want to do is I want to update that book, which means I need to call this new rating method on that book object. So down here, I'm going to say update book, which refers to that instance of that book. And then, what did I call that method again? New rating. That's what it was. New rating. And I'm going to give it the book rating that I just got from the user. And then I'm going to say update book right there has been updated. So there's choice number 4. And that should do it. Let's run this and see what it does. So let's add a book first. Okay, so let's list the books, make sure it's there, looking good. Let's update the rating. Here are the books in the library, written by Forrest Gump. We're going to update number 1. New rating is 2 stars. And now when I list books, running by Forrest Gump has 2 stars. So those are the pieces of the code that you need to touch if you want to add a rating and update that rating. So if you just to review, we added it here. We added a constructor parameter here that provides us with that value. So when we create a new book class, we're giving it a rating to start with. We also, in that class, defined a method called new rating that it allows us to update that. It's called a setter method. It sets a property value. When we create the new book, we have to input a rating. So we're adding that here and here. And then we added a whole nother choice for actually doing the work of that rating. Now, most of this already existed, right? Everything except for getting the new rating. And some of our variable names we changed just to make it more readable. But update book.newRating is where we're actually taking the book index or the book itself, which has changed into from the index into the book here, taking the rating, and we're calling that new rating method, giving it the new rating. So that is how you do this. And now we'll have this on video for everybody to watch in slow-mo and update your code. But there are some really strong parallels between this and what you need to do for assignment 14. So hopefully that clears it up for a lot of you and helps out. So I am not going to stop recording because we have more to talk about today.